Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon and good evening to those of us around the world. My name is Rob DeCania Knight, and welcome to this SUSE technical meetup focusing on application delivery. I'd also like to give a very warm welcome to our friends over in the Asia Pacific region. I know it's getting quite late for you, and it's great to see so many of you have joined. So, just a very quick who's who. I'm Rob DeCania Knight. I'm a platform and management technical strategist at SUSE. I'm going to be kind of hosting and moderating this meetup today. Also on the line, we've got Abhinav Puri, the product manager for SUSE Application Delivery, and Andrew Gracie, who's our product marketing manager as well for application delivery solutions. So why are we here? Why are we kind of running this slightly more informal webinar type that we're calling a meetup? It's mainly to share our view on the application delivery world and to kind of present SUSE's strategy for what we're going to do going forward. We're going to show some demos as well, but also we want to get input from you guys as attendees. We want you to tell us what you want to see. We want you to engage and ask questions. There's not a whole lot of pre-scripted content in this meetup, so the direction of this whole session is really directed by you as attendees. We can unmute you, bring you in to talk and share your stories and experience, but also to ask questions as well. So there's a few different ways that we're able to engage. There will be some polls that will pop up on the screen. I'll kick a small test one off in a second. And anytime you want to ask a question, just type into the chat box. You'll see it's probably labeled questions, and one of us will then get that message and be able to address. If you want us to customize the demo in any way, so if we show a screen later on and you want to know what happens if we click a certain button, just let us know. Also, if you want to share your experience of any of kind of SUSE's products or anything in the overall kind of DevOps, Kubernetes, application delivery space, then just let us know through that same chat box, and then we'll be able to unmute you later in the webinar so that you can share your experiences via audio as well. So yeah, please do volunteer. Please start asking questions, any kind of things that are burning. Thank you for those who put down some questions on the registration form. We've incorporated some of that feedback into what we're going to go through today. And I was quite motivated to see a couple of you even said, I want to share my experience with SUSE CaaS Platform. So that'll be very good. And you can also directly get on the line with Abhinav, our product manager, and ask him your burning questions, make sure that your requirements are known. So just to quickly, more of a test than anything else to make sure that, GoToWebinar is doing what it should be doing. I've just popped a poll up on the screen now, to just quickly ask, why have you joined this meetup? Is it to get an introduction over SUSE's offerings, to ask us questions, ask the panel questions, and give feedback to our product team, to share your experiences, or just to engage a little more with the people at SUSE? We've also got a lot of employees on the line as well, which is really good. So it's not just us three that are kind of presenting the webinar. So it's quite a diverse range of people that you can collaborate with as well, or because your manager told you to. Okay, we're getting some of the answers coming in now. That's great. So I will now close that and then share the results. So yeah, it does seem we have a winner there on getting an introduction to SUSE's application delivery solutions, which is great. That's really kind of what we're going to aim to deliver. If nothing else, we hope to achieve that. So what we're going to kick off with first is I'm going to hand over controls to Andrew, who's going to give us a very, very quick demo using some of the SUSE technologies that we have available in this space. And then we're going to go through afterwards and discuss that. So thank you very much, Andrew. Over to you.
Hey, thank you. So let me get out of that. So I'm just going to show you a really quick demo of just how easy we think it can actually be to deploy your code into Kubernetes environments. So as you can see, I've got an application running right here, and it's a little bit bland, so I'm going to make some changes to it. So I can come in. I've got this project in GitLab, but it can be any Git that you want. And I'm going to go and make a change to this project. I'm going to come in, make some change. Something a bit more interesting. See if I can type right. And I'm just going to commit those changes. And I'm going to wait for GitLab.com to do its magic.
So yeah, while I think that's happening, Andrew, if we just quickly pass control over to my iPad, because that'll take a couple of seconds to come through, and maybe see if I can draw out and explain to people kind of what's happening. So I hope everyone can see the iPad now. What Andrew's basically done is, if we draw a nice little box there, we've got our GitLab repository, and as he mentioned, this can be kind of any code repository. There you go, ignore my bad handwriting, and that's just it's just storing our source code. Now, overrunning on top of AWS, and this could be any cloud or even on-premise, we've got a Kubernetes environment. Doesn't necessarily matter what Kubernetes environment that is.
Just so you know, your drawings are taking a moment to actually come up on our screens.
That's good to know. Thank you, Andrew. In addition to that, as part of, integrated into GitLab, there is also a CI/CD element, continuous integration, continuous delivery. Sometimes that is an external system like Jenkins or Concourse, but sometimes it's built into the product, as is the case of GitLab. And what's effectively happening is the CI/CD system is pulling that code out of the repository, and then it's pushing it to Kubernetes. However, this is one of the important differences when it comes to SUSE's application delivery solutions, is in addition to the kind of standard way to deploy apps to Kubernetes, we've got our own cloud application platform. Now that is actually sitting inside of Kubernetes. It's taking up a specific part of the cluster, and that's based on a technology known as Cloud Foundry. Now, some of you will probably know what Cloud Foundry is. It's been around for a while. It's just simply designed to make deploying applications super easy, and it basically abstracts Kubernetes away from us. So when Andrew has deployed that app, or whenever you deploy any app from GitLab or any other system, you don't actually need to write any Kubernetes YAML whatsoever. Our platform extracts all of that away, and it basically means that you just have to worry about your app, and you don't have to worry about containers, which has a whole host of other benefits that Abhinav will talk about later. So Andrew, if you want to take control back, then continue for the rest. It should be done now, I think.
It is. Are you able to see my screen?
Just there you go.
Okay, cool. There we go. Okay, so with that done, I did nothing in the background other than watch it go. And now if you see that I reload, you can see we've got something a bit more interesting. And that was it. That was the extent of what it takes to deploy into Kubernetes. Can you not?
You're not sharing.
Okay, thank you. How about now?
That's better.
Okay, perfect. It's 1 a.m. for me. Yeah, so with a quick reload, you can see that now I've got something a bit more interesting. than just a hello world. And yeah, that is the extent of what it takes to actually deploy an application into Kubernetes using this method.
Which is awesome. Thank you very much for
Yeah.
sharing that for us, Andrew. Now, I'm just kind of taking a look at the questions, and we have had one come through from Loretta. Is there a SUSE GUI to manage my apps? And we'll hold off on that one now, Loretta, because we're going to come to that a little later on today. But first, we're going to head over to Abhinav, who's going to do a quick, within 5 to 10 minute presentation on SUSE's strategy for application delivery. And then we're going to head back and do some more demos. So feel free to start putting your questions into the box now so that we can put those towards Abhinav at the end of his deck. And yeah, over to you, Abhinav.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Rob, and thanks, Andrew, for that wonderful introduction. All right. So as Rob talked about, in the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'll just walk you through how we at SUSE are looking at this market of containers, at this market of application delivery and of cloud-native application platforms. So let me know if, as the screen moves ahead. All right. So how we are looking at the market is any organization, all of us are working for some organization or the other. So any organization, in order to accelerate their business, they want to enter new markets. They want to quickly react to competitive pressures. They want to be able to reduce costs. And all of this needs to be done in a very fast and agile manner so that they're able to be the first to market or able to quickly respond to their competition or, have that competitive advantage. And that competitive advantage is application driven in all organizations today. So every company is a software company. Someone very rightly put that, and we truly believe that today. So competitive differentiation is going to come from how fast you as an organization can deliver your applications from code to production. And that's the name of the game today. So agility is the name of the game. And we at SUSE recognize that. What we also recognize is that different organizations are at different stages of their application transformation journey. There are different stages of the application transformation journey. So some organizations would say, okay, we have a set of applications running in VMs. So what do we do with that? Do we containerize those sets of applications, directly take that application, lift and shift, containerize it, and deploy it wherever they want to deploy it? There may be other organizations which would like to say, okay, let's start refactoring what we have today. Or another set of organization which would say, okay, let's start building new applications in a more cloud native, with a more cloud native approach. So different organizations would be at different stages or may start their journey to application transformation from a different perspective, from a different view altogether. And once they've started and into that journey, that's when they'll start formalizing and standardizing on processes, on protocols, and become more mature in that journey. So, however, throughout that journey, one thing that will remain constant is the underlying platform on which they are going to deploy these containerized applications. And what we are seeing in the industry today is that Kubernetes has become the de facto infrastructure platform on which containerized applications are being deployed. And that is where the SUSE Container as a Service, or how we call it, the CaaS platform, is positioned. It is our own Kubernetes distribution, our own container management and orchestration solution to give you access to a very simplified installation and deployment mechanism alongside a security hardened product that you can use as your Kubernetes platform in your organization to run containerized applications on. However, certain organizations would not want that level of flexibility, let's say, that a Kubernetes solution provides. They'd say, okay, we want a higher level of abstraction. All we want to do is increase our developer productivity, and we want to get our developers' code right from their screens where they're writing their code in their IDEs directly to production environments. And that is where SUSE Cloud Application Platform, Rob also talked about that very briefly at the start, comes into play. That is the abstraction layer that we are providing for increasing developer productivity. So these are the two products that we have positioned in this market, solving those different sets of use cases. The SUSE CaaS platform is our Kubernetes-based solution, and the SUSE Cloud Application Platform, which is our Cloud Foundry-based solution. So I'm moving through slides a bit faster than I would like. Yeah. What I'd really like to highlight here is the approach that we at SUSE are taking. From our perspective, we'd like to hand over the flexibility in the hands of you as an individual, you as an organization. If whatever suits your use case, if you want just a Kubernetes-based solution and that is what is solving your needs, we offer you that with the SUSE CaaS platform. If you need a higher level of abstraction, we offer you the SUSE Cloud Application Platform. And most importantly, the SUSE Cloud Application Platform can run on any Kubernetes that you'd like to bring. It definitely runs on SUSE CaaS platform, also runs on the managed Kubernetes provided by the public cloud providers, whether it's AKS, EKS, or GKE. So we are offering that kind of modularity, that kind of flexibility for organizations to decide where they are in their journey of application transformation and what is the level of abstraction or what is the level of flexibility that they'd like to engage with. And that's our approach to this market. And these are the products that we have. And I'm really looking forward to the demos that the team has prepared for you guys to, so that you can play with these, you can see these products, and hopefully after this, you can play with these products by yourselves and, just have fun with them. So over to you, Andrew and Rob. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Abhinav. Just while we've got you on the line, we've had one or two questions come in that I'll ask you now, as it relates to kind of what you just said. I think the number one, and it's one of the most burning questions for me as well, that I want you to answer. What benefits does your CaaS or container platform bring to me over other platforms in the market? And that question's from Brandy.
All right. So one of the key things that we'd like to see is you as an organization, when you are opting in for a Kubernetes-based solution, you're opting in for the flexibility so that you can integrate your own processes, your own tools with that Kubernetes-based solution. You'd want that. That's all you want. That you want a Kubernetes-based solution. You don't want a lot of frills attached to that. If you'd want that high level of abstraction, you'd go in for a different set of tooling. And that's what we bring to you. We bring to you a native Kubernetes experience with the SUSE CaaS platform. That's number one. Another thing that really differentiates us from our competition at this point in time is we are the first enterprise vendor in the market today to ship support for Cilium as a network plugin. And that helps you secure your application environment. That helps you secure how you deploy your applications. So Cilium, so think of the world of, in the world of containers and in the world of microservices, they're not, most containers and microservices don't live very long on wherever they are deployed. So it may happen that in 20, 30 seconds, a container might just be gone. A microservice might just be gone, that a containerized microservice. So traditional, security policies based on IP tables, for example, there's only so much information that could be attached to an IP address or to a port for, that 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And, when you're doing your audit trails or when you're doing, for compliance purposes, there's only so much meaningful information that you can extract from that IP tables or from those ports. And this is where Cilium's BPF, Berkeley Packet Filter based security policies come into play. And Cilium lets you define pod to pod level communication, ensuring that you can encrypt that communication between pods where your containers are deployed. And that is what really differentiates us from our competition, including other products in the market, whether it's, products from our competition, whether it's OpenShift or any of the likes. We are using that we are providing that additional layer 7 based, allowing you the ability to define security policies based on layer 7 protocols. And that is what really differentiates us.
Absolutely, I think that's a very good answer. And we did actually have a question come in while you were answering from Antonio, kind of asking for the main difference from OpenShift. And I think, just to kind of summarize it with what I took from what you said was our CaaS platform is a vanilla Kubernetes distribution. You're not paying for stuff that you don't need, which makes it a lot more flexible in terms of deployment options and how you integrate it with your infrastructure. And we're also the only enterprise vendor supporting Cilium at this point. And I think
Absolutely.
three takeaways from that are very strong. Also worth mentioning, our other application delivery product, Cloud Application Platform, that is directly comparable with OpenShift in terms of that kind of PaaS, platform as a service functionality. In fact, there's a lot of benefits that come along with that, where it's Cloud Foundry based. There's no vendor lock-in. With OpenShift, you've got OpenShift and OKD. If you wanted to move to another vendor, you can't. Whereas there's many vendors, for Cloud Foundry distribution, so it's portable among them. And Andrew's going to touch on some of those benefits over the next couple of demos, because they're going to be primarily based on our Cloud Application Platform. Just before we head over to Andrew, I wanted to highlight, I've just pushed out a PDF version of these slides as Helene asked for it in the chat just now. I'd also like to remind everyone, sometimes the chat box doesn't automatically scroll down, so you are able to see questions we've answered via text, but you may have to scroll it down yourselves, just to be aware of that. So some great questions so far. We're going to head back over to Andrew to plow on through the rest of the demo. So start those questions coming in, and like I say, if you want to share your experience with our products, then just let us know and we can unmute you later on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob.
Let me get my webcam on again. There we go. Awesome. So the next set of demos I'm going to show are all based on our user interface that we've built. So this is our Stratos user interface. It is an open source GUI that we've used. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, so this is what we found out and what we realized was that with both Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes, they're very heavily command line oriented, and not everybody really wants to be using the command line all the time. And so we built a user interface that you can use to actually be able to see and be able to deploy your applications from a variety of sources. So I'm going to go ahead and show exactly how you would deploy from GitHub. So say you had an application that either a developer or a vendor gave you that was up on GitHub. They would probably just give you that code. And so you could actually just go to the basically to the project or the namespace that they give you. It can actually autofill, and then you can click on the application that you want to launch. So I'm going to go ahead and run this Dizzy Lizard, and
just quickly, Andrew.
Yes.
Could you make that font just a little bigger?
Yes, I can. How about that?
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So when you actually deploy from GitHub, you get the choice of the commit that you want. So it uses the GitHub API to actually be able to go and get all the information that you need about the application. You can give it an application name. Let's just call it Dizzy. Why not? And then that will actually do a push. So it basically pulls that information down. It pushes it to Cloud Foundry, which then knows how to build the application based on what it sees in the code. So it's very clever. And if we see really quickly, we'll go to the app summary. You can see that it is in the staging process. So from here, you have a really nice operational user interface where you can come in and see the instances that are running, and you can see that we're still in the staging process. You can see the routes that we've got attached to it. And you can see little pop-ups telling you that your deployment is complete. So I'm actually going to go ahead and click that route. And you can see that we now have a brand new game that I can play for a bit. So I'm gonna not get too distracted by that and close
What's
that.
the route, Andrew? I just noticed you mentioned that. Yeah, well, what is that?
Sorry, say that again?
What is a route for people not familiar
Yeah,
with Cloud Foundry?
so the root would be basically an address that you can browse to, or that other services can use to be able to get into the system. So
So yeah,
these
it's like
applications,
automatic DNS
yeah,
and subdomain management, basically.
exactly. So you
Awesome.
have to. So I've got this piece in my DNS to know that all of this is inside of Cloud Foundry. So when I click there, it can set this up. So on that point, say I want to actually have multiple domains that are pointing to the same application. I can just come in and create a new route, Dizzy2. And then now I can get to that same application on the new route. And that has audio, so it blows out my headphones. From there, you can actually see a live stream of all of your logs. So if you have multiple instances going, you can actually see all of your logs all in one place. You can see the services that are attached to this, which are none for this one. Any variables that are passed in. Any events that has been triggering, so any scaling. So again, I mentioned the instances, so I can actually say maybe I know that I'm getting a bunch of extra traffic to this web app. I can actually go ahead and scale it up, and then you can see in the events that it gives me some scaling, and then you can also from GitHub. You can actually go in and select different commits. So say you've got some new commits that have come in. You can actually go and deploy those, or actually compare them against each other if they're newer. So Rob, do we have any questions?
So yeah, I think now is a good point to address some of those. One of the ones that came in from Roy, is how does this technology work with Windows, .NET, and other programming languages that you find in Linux or Windows?
Yeah, so it's right now we have .NET core support. So you can use basically any of the .NET that's just .NET Core. You can use that by default because it obviously has Linux support. At the moment, and Abhinav might be able to talk a little bit more about this, but we don't have Windows Kubernetes support because it's just not quite on par with the Linux. It's trailing a little bit behind, but that is something that is on a roadmap that I believe we will talk about later.
Okay, yeah, but I think it's worth mentioning everything else is supported aside from the .NET 4 because that just requires Windows worker nodes. I know looking when I had a browse last night, there's even COBOL, packages
And of course,
available for.
7.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah,
So you can use some of these tools to bridge that gap between maybe a little bit of a older style of doing development with COBOL and Fortran and the newer languages that you have, say you're using Go or Rust or there's because of the way language support is built into it, it makes it very easy that as long as it runs on Linux,
yes, of
it
course, yes.
will. That is the only limiting factor at the moment, and hopefully in the not too distant future that limit should be
You
gone.
know, we'll pin down Abhinav later on when we
Yeah.
discuss the roadmap and ask about that. I think is good. Yes, a couple more questions. We've got some good ones flowing in. So you know, please everyone, ask your questions. You know, ask away, and you know, we'll get to these. And just on that topic where you're talking about, you know, these types of legacy languages, I think this is great where we've got a Cloud Foundry distribution running on top of Kubernetes. We can support both microservices, you know, greenfield projects that are, you know, most optimized for Cloud Foundry, but where we're on top of Kubernetes and also ship a Kubernetes platform, we can support any legacy app that you might want to put into a container and run. I've got some customers running Oracle databases on their Kubernetes cluster, talking to their CAP cluster for their microservices development. You know, so microservices using Oracle DB. Whether you should do that is a separate question. Sometimes needs must, and having that flexibility to do both, I think, is really powerful. I'll address one more question. We've had a question come in from Carsten, and it's, I believe, he's mentioning a question from one of his customers has asked, you know, what is SUSE's answer if I actually want to build container images and deploy them around the world? So Cloud Foundry wouldn't really fit my use case, but Kubernetes alone is also not enough. How can I get support for the components in the whole pipeline from SUSE? So I guess this is asking about not just, you know, for Cloud Foundry, they want a Kubernetes distribution, but they want support for everything on top of that: service mesh monitoring, logging, and CI/CD as well. I think this would be a good time to bring Abhinav back in to talk about our support
Sure.
statement, some of these extra pieces.
Sure. So how we are looking at the entire enterprise container platform market right now is that where we are focusing primarily at this point in time is the container management and orchestration capabilities that Kubernetes provides. That's something we fully support. At the same time, there are these adjacent market segments that are relevant for an organization to deploy a containerized application anywhere. So that, you know, that being that of monitoring or logging, being that of having a CI/CD pipeline in place, or you know, looking at data management services that you might also need support for, or your storage or your networking and so on and so forth. So there are two approaches how we are looking at it from a product perspective. One is we are going to increasingly add functionality within our products to address each of these subsegments or functionalities that you may need as an organization. And at the same time, we are looking for partnerships, and we are actively working with our partners to integrate their existing offerings into our products so that you can use, let's say, an existing CI/CD solution, integrate that into SUSE CaaS platform to be able to deploy your you know, from your code, build a pipeline and deploy it on a Kubernetes that could be you know, SUSE CaaS platform. Or at the same time, we're also looking to provide support for SUSE CaaS platform on any of the public cloud environments, so that you can have a consistent Kubernetes experience and consistent management experience across whether you deploy your application on CaaS on-premise, or whether you deploy your applications on the CaaS platform on any of the public clouds.
Understood.
So
Yeah, I think that's a very comprehensive answer. I think the key kind of takeaway from that is, although SUSE doesn't have a supported CI/CD today, we do have packages available in PackageHub which can help with some of that, and we do have it on our roadmap. It is in our strategy to look into these options for both CaaS and Cloud Application Platform as well. And then we've also got some great partnerships, you know, with some third-party vendors that can definitely help in that area as well. And I think I agree with you, you know, where we are trying to build a vanilla Kubernetes distribution, as well as building, you know, kind of a sports car grade platform as a service. You know, we want to get those core basics great before we start adding on things, and we want to make sure we understand people's requirements, which is another great point actually. At the end of the webinar, a survey box will pop up, and you'll also get emailed a link later on today in a couple of hours. In that box, you can ask either to be contacted by someone from SUSE, or you can just put in a message as feedback, and all of that content will get sent straight to Abhinav and the rest of our PMs. So if you don't want to make your requirements known in the chat or via voice now, then send them through later today so we can make sure that your requirements are known and we can reach out and have a further chat about that. I think that would be great. I'm going to pass back to Andrew now, who's going to do one more little bit of demoing, and I think we're going to talk about the Helm functionality. So just while he tees that up, for those unaware, Helm is a common way to deploy applications to Kubernetes. It does make it simpler to deploy multiple containers at once. It also includes any load balancers they need, services, ingress, and a whole bunch of other secrets, all sorts of things that app might need. So yeah, if you'd like to show us how we've built that into our web platform, Andrew, that would be great.
Yeah, perfect. So as you said, Helm is a tool to be able to really make deployments of a little bit larger applications doable very easily. Again, a lot of times you're being passed code in a variety of forms, and one of those forms would be Helm. So you could go, and I'm going to deploy this Aerospike. And you can see that we can actually get some information. We can actually browse through all the charts that we have available to us and then get some information about each of them. Yes?
Andrew, quickly, what is Aerospike? Is this a SUSE product?
This is not a SUSE product. This would be some random vendor out there that has given you a chart to use that is their application. These could be in this one. This is coming from some public repo of applications.
So it's coming from the standard Kubernetes charts repository. Then the community are aware of this. That's great. Yeah, but a vendor could deal with it. No, that's great. Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, so you can add in multiple repos from different vendors and be able to just have a very rich environment of different applications to be able to choose from. So for the sake of just having a demo, I'm going to choose this Aerospike. We can see it gives us some information, some prereqs, some details about it, some values that we can set, as well as known limitations that don't apply to us. So typically, the way you would do a Helm deployment is that you would actually come in, you would add your repo, and then you would, from the command line, you would do an installation. So that's not really for all people. Some of us really like a user interface that's potentially web-based or graphical. So we would rather just have a button that allows you to install. So once we press this install button, we get the choice of what Kubernetes cluster we want to apply to install this into. We can give it a name. I spelled that wrong, but it doesn't really matter. And a namespace that we want to apply it to install it into. And then you're faced with what values you want to actually apply into this. So you can have, basically, when you do installation, you're able to give it a set of values that can configure all of the different pieces. But a lot of times you're trying to sit there and figure out what you actually want. So we give you a way that you can just go ahead and get all the defaults and then edit those as you want. Makes it really easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and install with the defaults. And there you can see that we now have this Aerospike demo running. So if I click into it, it shows, this is probably a very, very basic one. It shows that we've got one pod that's running and one container that is still on its way up. So in here, you can actually see the notes that it gave you. A lot of times these will be, these are provided by whoever built the chart. Typically they're something along the lines of like how to actually, what the next step should be. Do you want to access it? If you want to set up more applications based on it, it will give you all of that information.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, I think we've had a lot of questions come in while you were doing that, which is awesome. Keep sending those through, everyone in the audience. I'm going to pick out a couple now. Got Yaroslaw, who has asked, So how does CAP impact security? Say if you're a bank where things have to be ironclad, for example, rootless containers, are CADA containers going to be supported? Now, I'd actually kind of preface this by saying, although traditionally banks have been known as being some of the most locked down environments in the world, there is nothing stopping them from adopting modern solutions like these. I think a good example of that is Monzo here in the UK, where the vast majority of their infrastructure runs on Amazon, on AWS, running on top of Kubernetes on Amazon. So there are obviously security regulations that need to be abided to, but I don't feel that using a product like Kubernetes or Cloud Application Platform prevents that. On the subject of CADA containers, and for those unaware, CADA containers allow you to give extra isolation to containers, very similar to what you might expect from a virtual machine. We do have those on the roadmap, and Abhinav's going to kind of address those a little bit later. And in fact, Abhinav, if I could ask you to put a bit more detail into the chat and answer Yaroslav's question just by typing so we can answer some of these other questions, that would be great.
Sure.
We've got a question from Antonio. Will we also see a demo of the installation of the Cloud Application Platform itself? The answer to that is no, primarily because it takes a while to install the containers. The installation process is dead simple. Once you've got a Kubernetes cluster, and that can be any Kubernetes you want, SUSE CaaS Platform, AKS, EKS, it's as simple as creating one values file and then running one Helm install command. In fact, now where we have on our roadmap, we're soon going to be bringing this web interface you can see on your screen now on top of SUSE CaaS Platform. And once that is deployed, you could even do that deployment of Cloud Application Platform using that web interface. So the installation is relatively simple, but where it's a lot of container images and they're quite large, they're about 5 gig each, it can take about 20-30 minutes to demo that. By all means, if we get time later today and enough people want to stay on and see it, we can give a quick walkthrough. But yeah, that's we'll cover that offline, Antonio, I think, as well. I'll assign it to myself, so I'll reach out afterwards if you want a personalized demo of that. A couple more questions before we move on. So this is thank you, Roy. This is a beautiful web interface. Do we have to buy it from the marketplace, or do we need to buy from the marketplace? So the web interface is built into SUSE Cloud Application Platform, and soon SUSE CaaS Platform. It is part of the products. When you're referring to the marketplace, as in the button we can see on Andrew's screen there, the answer to that is it depends. So we provide something known as mini broker. And also there are what are called service brokers for public clouds. And as Andrew's showing you now, what this means is that the marketplace can connect to Amazon or Azure or Google and then make available all of those services like RDS, Athena, NFS storage, and then make them available to your microservices to use. The majority of those services in the marketplace are free to deploy. Obviously, you do incur the infrastructure charges because in the background, they are deploying an RDS cluster and then connecting it to your app. There are also third-party vendors and partners that offer paid marketplace solutions. And that's kind of one of the flexibilities of this Cloud Foundry-based model that we've got with CAP. You can combine really what you need to get the job done. If you've got a third-party vendor that has a specific database technology, I know Oracle makes some service brokers for some of their database technologies. Then you can pay them and then connect them up. I think one of the next demos will be Andrew showing that services and marketplace capability. So you'll see that in a bit more detail. And I hope that answers your question. Now, there's something that's come in from Claudio as well. Hi, Claudio. Would be interesting to see how my deployed apps' performance are being measured. and the relevant Kubernetes clusters? Now, that's an awesome question, and we can show you that right away, I believe, Andrew, if you've got metrics deployed.
I do not have metrics deployed.
That's okay. If you No, that's good. No, like I said at the start, we didn't have necessarily a script for this webinar. The idea is for you to steer us. So I will take control, and this is how you know we are really live. I'll show my screen. Hopefully not the presenter screen. There we go. And I will quickly show you the metrics view that we have in one of my demo environments. Let me just log in, pray to the demo gods. Yes. So within Cloud Application Platform, we have the concept of a metrics endpoint, and we do provide a Helm chart to deploy all of these metrics capabilities. What this will do is deploy Prometheus and something known as the CF exporter to export all of the Cloud Foundry metrics from your apps. So if I go to an application that's already deployed, as we can see, Dizzy Lizard is very popular in this environment. I've got a metrics tab near the bottom. And then what we're able to do is within our web interface, pull in those metrics from Prometheus and then display them here. Now, this is a fully functioning Prometheus server that's deployed. So, that can be integrated with Grafana and kind of any other monitoring solution that's out there. But for kind of basic metrics, this is what's deployed. In terms of the Kubernetes view, the second part of your question, on our initial screen, we've got a very high level overview of the cluster that is connected to the platform. As mentioned, it can connect to multiple clusters. As we can see on my endpoints here, I'm connected to Azure Kubernetes service, but I've also got a couple of other clusters that I'm connected to as well. There's no limit to the number of clusters that we can manage, which is pretty awesome to have that unified in one view. In terms of the nodes, this is quite a large Amazon Azure Kubernetes service cluster. And also worth mentioning, we've also recently integrated Kubernetes dashboards as well. So if you have got the Kubernetes dashboard deployed and set up, you can click it and load it. Now, where this is running on Azure, I haven't yet given our dashboard the permissions to access it yet. But as a quick entry point for your admins, that's a really good way in. So Andrew, if you want to take back control, thanks for that question, Claudio. Definitely like being challenged at 9 AM in the morning. I had no idea if that would if that would be okay or not, because I've not touched that environment in a while. We've got a couple of other questions. One from Ringo. Do you have an example including business software, SAP, and CaaS in combination with SAP Data Hub? The answer to that is, do we have an example we can show you now? No, nothing that we can actually demo. Could an example be created? I don't see why not, really. At the end of the day, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to connect the two. Jamie's asked a question. What about alerts based on app metrics? Now, that's a very important topic, alerting, and for that you would have to deploy Alert Manager or some other alert manager. We do support the standard upstream alert manager that we've rebased into a SUSE package, so that will work okay. And then connect that up to whatever alerting system at the other end. That isn't currently available through the web interface that you can see on the screen now, but as time goes on, we will be adding more capabilities in that area. And I think also, where monitoring is such a custom bit of work for most people, we've provided the good base and we provide all of the components that are needed for alerting, but actually how you alert and what you choose to act on your metrics, that is very customer dependent. There's no golden rule, one rule fits all. So by deploying Prometheus, that can then be integrated, and we can even integrate that for our professional services to any further on alerting or monitoring system, ServiceNow, things like that. So Another question is coming in from Shinene. What is SAP Data Hub? So SAP Data Hub is an SAP product that's designed to pull data from various areas that it might be within your organization, and then make that available for actioning. I'd say is the simplest term. Abhinav, do you want to talk about that any further and explain our story with SAP Data Hub?
Sure. So yeah, since there are a lot of questions regarding SAP Data Hub and where we as SUSE are currently positioned, or what are we driving with that? So SAP, we have a very close association with SAP in general as a partner. SAP Data Hub 2.6, which is the current version of the product, is certified to run on CaaS 3. SAP Data Hub 2.7, which is going to be released pretty soon, will also be certified to run on CaaS 4.0, which is the currently released product in the market. And we also have a completely fully functioning reference architecture right from the hardware that you need to deploy that entire solution on, from and on top, alongside SUSE CaaS Platform, and SUSE Enterprise Storage, and how do these products form the base for the SAP Data Hub solution. So we have documented reference architectures available to deploy SAP Data Hub on SUSE technology on vendor hardware, and we have those available with our hardware partners as well. So we see the SAP Data Hub story as a very strong story that is something that could provide a lot of benefit to the market, and we have a strong position on that. Like I said, documented architectures available for those interested. Please drop in your mail IDs, or as a question if you're interested, we can share those reference architectures with you, and we can circulate that after, Rob, if that would be possible.
Yeah, so we can share reference architectures. If you have those PDFs, Abhinav, already, let me know and I can just push them out through handouts.
I'll share that with you.
And if you email them to me,
won't happen now, but I will do that.
So if you email them to me now, I can send them out to everyone in the webinar now.
As well.
I see. That's good. So one more question before we go back to Andrew's demo. Does SUSE offer a demo environment for me to try out CAP myself? Now the answer to that, and thank you, Shaniqua, is that at the moment we don't have a hosted platform for you to try out CAP. However, I'll let Abhinav talk a bit about our future plans in a second, but I do want to mention it is super easy to install. We provide quick starts for AWS and Terraform scripts for AWS, EKS, and Google Cloud, and I think OpenStack as well. And the install instructions are relatively simple to complete. We have designed CAP to be a community tool as well as an enterprise product. What this means is that the code is exactly the same if you as an individual deploy it on your MacBook Pro or Linux laptop if you must, or if I sell it to a customer. It's the same container images that are downloaded from the same registry and deployed. All our customers pay for is support. Now the benefits that brings to you is you're getting an enterprise Cloud Foundry platform for free. And if you do want to deploy it wider in your organization, then obviously you can reach out to us for a subscription. So I want to highlight that. So where we don't have one yet to try out, trying it out yourself is super easy and super free. And we can even help you set that up as well. If you indicate on the feedback form, yes, that you want someone to reach out to you, pop a little message in there with your email, then myself or someone else local will reach out to you directly. So Abhinav, what are our future plans with a hosted cloud application platform?
Absolutely. So first of all, yes, thanks for providing the details, Rob, on how you can access CAP so easily and just start playing with it already. In the future, we have a couple of directions planned for developers to get hold of SUSE Cloud Application Platform. One of those is making SUSE Cloud Application Platform available on the marketplaces of the hyperscalers, so all the big ones. So that's on track. You'll be able to use it very easily directly from the marketplace. So that's number one. Another plan is to have a developer portal in place, and that's also you'll very soon see a developer portal in place, in fact, where you can just go and have just play with CAP, just try it out, have a demo environment in place, and do whatever you want to do with the product. We are working in both these directions to get the product in the hands of the developers as fast and as easy as possible. So that's both of these directions are on track right now.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Abhinav. So we did have a couple of questions just pop through that disappeared. So I hope that you're able to send those through again for us. Oh, I see Andrew's answered them. Ignore me. Sorry about that. Now, one of the things I mentioned at the start is we're going to take some input from customers. So, those of you who have experience of SUSE's, whether it's our application delivery solutions, or just want to give direct feedback via voice. So we are going to bring onto the line Roy. He's actually asked a question about working with Kubernetes and databases. So we're going to bring him online. He said he's willing to talk about his use case and his experience so far. So I've unmuted you now, Roy. Can you hear us? Can you speak is the question.
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hi, Roy.
Sorry.
How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. I had mic problems there. So just want to say thanks for putting this on today. It's been very interesting so far. So I am relatively new to this Kubernetes world and containerization, and we're building a small team of DevOps. Obviously, we're all Linux operators ourselves. One of the challenges that I've got in my application is I have a really active, heavily write database. So overnight it processes a lot of data, but all that data is mostly written into a database. So do you guys have any pointers of being able to expand this into containerization, and how I could get away with moving this off its current HA cluster into more of a scalable platform?
Okay, so Andrew, I think you might be best placed to touch on this to begin with.
I apologize. I was typing in the answer to another question.
That's okay, I will answer. So the answer, Roy, is that you don't necessarily need to containerize your databases. Now, depending on what infrastructure you've got, Kubernetes isn't necessarily the right choice for everything. And databases are one of those examples where inside a container, that may not be the best place for them to live. That's not to say they can't be containerized and run on Kubernetes. It just means you have to spec your hardware appropriately. And when your engineers are writing the deployment scripts, that they have to take that into account. And it really does depend on what performance you need. But with the technologies that we've got, there is nothing stopping you running something like Cloud Application Platform and then connecting it to an existing on-premise HA setup database. We have a lot of customers doing exactly that because they need that bit of extra performance that only a physical tin can bring them, with a bunch of SSDs and everything else. In time, that will change. We're sure as optimizations improve, things like Kata containers may help further, but there are things you can do to optimize as well. So Kubernetes has the concept of node labels. You can assign a node label to a specific node, perhaps one that's got a lot of CPU memory and SSDs, and then you can ensure that only your database containers can run on that node, which will mean that they're running on the hardware they're meant to be running on, but they're also not going to have issues of multi-tenancy. They're not going to have their performance ruined by another container using a lot of CPU or whatever. So there are some strategies we can take to mitigate that. And I think in your case, what it's worth us doing is, we will reach out to yourself and work with our professional services to figure out the best way to migrate these workloads into Kubernetes. And if it turns out that Kubernetes isn't the best place for them and it's better to leave them on premise, then we're happy to inform on that as well. So does that answer your question, or at least provide some answer?
Oh no, it answers my question. But is there a way? So would I generally do this via the command line, or would the what's the application Stratos? Would that provide me any kind of interaction with doing that?
Yeah, so depending on how the database is deployed, depends on what we can use to deploy it. Now, if we've got Helm charts available for it, then you can do everything within Stratos, and your ops team or even your service desk could use Stratos to deploy everything from the database through to the app on top, and then connect the two together. So it really does depend on how the database is deployed.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
That's all right. Thank you very much for joining. So just having a quick look at the questions box. Developers are typically command line users. Can you show the functionality that is done from the GUI from the command line? Can you show how one is able to go into the respective instance of the deployed app, for example, SSHing into the app, and show, for example, environment variables? Andrew, can you show that?
I am currently on an Irene release, which means that the SSHing is not in my. So
that's
currently,
okay.
yeah, currently Irene is. Go ahead.
We have a way around that. If you want to explain what Irene is and the background to what you've just said while I set up my demo.
Sounds good. Yeah, so Irene is a project that SUSE has been involved in with Cloud Foundry. And really it's revolving around making the applications that Cloud Foundry produces much more native to Kubernetes. So in that process, and so previously, the applications would actually be run inside of Diego cells inside of Kubernetes, which was a nice way to do it, but you lose some of the Kubernetes functionality when you get that abstraction. So Irene is really useful for really kind of making everything that you're producing even more cloud native and also even more lightweight. At the moment, in the current release, this functionality is in what we call a tech preview stage. So while it's functional, it's not quite ready for prime time. And I believe in the next release, there should be a lot more of these features that are ready, such as SSH, which I believe I've seen a demo of it working. I just don't have that installed at the moment.
Thank you for that background, Andrew. So yes, I do have a cluster which is using our non-tech preview, production grade, awesome stuff. So if you go ahead and make me presenter, I'm just struggling to make it the font bigger. One sec. There we go. Yeah, if you share my screen.
Should have the pop-up.
There we go. See, it's definitely going off script, guys. I was meant to just be managing GoToMeeting. So I have a Cloud Foundry environment set up, and I am logged into it. If I do CF apps, I haven't currently got anything deployed. Now, Cloud Foundry is set up logically into spaces and organizations, which is basically a way to isolate users, kind of similar to RBAC in Kubernetes, but a million times easier than RBAC. And this is another benefit we can bring. RBAC is a pain, really, and it's a nightmare for developers and ops teams. A platform such as this abstracts all of that pain away from you. So I do have a demo app available. It's a Node.js app. It's the Clumsy Bird app, which we're all familiar to. The process of deploying this app, it's a two-step process. Now, although we mentioned earlier on that you don't have to learn YAML for Cloud Application Platform, writing a small YAML file can make your life easier. You don't have to use it. You can provide all of these arguments on the command line when deploying the app. But here we just give it, got to give it a name. Let's go for Dizzy Lizard Rob. And choose a build pack if we want. A build pack is just a standardized way to build an application. The platform will automatically detect the language and what it needs to do if you don't provide this, but it does make that process a little bit quicker for demo purposes, as well as how much memory and disk we want and how many instances want to give it. Now the process is as simple as doing a CF push, and that's Cloud Foundry push. Now with a bit of luck, what this is doing is zipping up everything in the application directory, zipping up all the code, sending it to my Cloud Application Platform instance. It's then basically compiling the app if it needs to be compiled. In this case, it's basically downloading all of the dependencies. It's also going to include, where it's a Node.js app, it's going to include Nginx as well. It's going to produce what is actually a container image. But as I mentioned earlier, we don't need to worry about containers anymore with this platform. We don't care about containers. Developers should have to worry about apps rather than managing the packaging format that will eventually deliver their apps. And this abstracts all of that away. It's then staging the application. Now, staging is a really powerful tool because where applications are staged and where SUSE is providing these build packs and is providing a base image to be used, or if there's a critical security vulnerability, we then will update the base image. You can then restage your applications, and then that will then apply that security fix from the OS layer to all of the apps. And that's really powerful because if we were dealing in kind of a native Kubernetes environment with just containers, you would have a Jenkins job, which might trigger 20 Jenkins jobs to rebuild the container when a base OS image is updated. All of those would have to then rebuild all of their dependencies as well to include that security chain. And that is sometimes weeks of work to actually just build up the CI process or CD process that builds those containers. Whereas with a platform like this, you don't have to worry about it at all. A developer definitely doesn't have to worry about it because an operations team member, they can restage the applications. The app code stays the same, but it pulls in any security fixes that are available from the backend environment. So that application is now running. It's now started. There it is. If I load up Chrome, it should now be running. There we go, Dizzy Lizard. And if we go back to the to the web UI for this environment, then we should be able to see it here as well. There it is, Dizzy Lizard Rob. And if I wanted to scale it, just click a couple of buttons and up it scales. So I haven't been keeping an eye on the questions because I've just been improving a demo. I hope that explained what you wanted to oh, SSH.
Yeah,
So,
SSH.
I've actually done this before. So let's make that window just a bit smaller so that you can.
And I didn't show it before, but you can also do the SSH from the Stratos as well and get a command line.
Dizzy Lizard. Let's check what I called it. Yeah, Dizzy Lizard Rob. Right, CF SSH, Dizzy Lizard Rob. There we go. So now I've SSH'd inside my app instance, and obviously I could specify which instance I wanted to SSH into if I wanted. We can see the environment variables that that Cloud Application Platform has passed into the app to run. Things like the URL, any proxy details, things like that. This would also be where if we had connected to any services or marketplace applications, it would pass the username and password in here. That's one method how it can do it. It can also provide credentials via flat files and a few other ways as well. It can obviously also integrate with other service discovery technologies like Console and things like that. So Claudia said thanks. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to go back to my comfort zone now and play moderator. So Andrew, if you wanna take the con and continue through the demo. I believe we're going to now show using Stratos that services and marketplace setup. You are currently muted, by the way.
Perfect.
There we go. Thank you.
And share my screen. Cool. Yeah, so I want to show again a quick demo. If I can log in, there we go. Basically showing what this marketplace is and how you would use it. So as Rob mentioned before, there's a technology in part of this called the Open Service Broker API, which basically gives you a really nice way to be able to pass in information to your running instances, to your applications themselves about kind of their externalities, databases that they need to be able to connect to, services provided by say Amazon or really any cloud provider. So inside of Stratos, we've got this marketplace, which basically will show us all of these all of the services that we have available to be able to install. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy a simple blog demo. And I know that in that I need to deploy MongoDB. So I'm going to go and in this MongoDB, you can see, actually I'm going to back up and search that again. You can see that we've got this MongoDB chart. This is coming from our mini broker, which is just a broker that will spin up local instances of a couple different databases as needed inside of Kubernetes. It's useful for development. Yes?
Say, Andrew, could it potentially spin up any Helm-based application that I might want it to? A genuine question.
You could build a broker to do that, and I believe that we've been chatting about doing that.
Yes.
At the moment, I don't know of a broker that will do any Helm-based application.
So yeah, we have ways to get most home-based applications to deploy, and this is something our professional services team will work with you to achieve. Also, going forward, we're moving all of this to an operator-based framework where these marketplace apps, rather than deploying a MongoDB Helm chart, will deploy the MongoDB Kubernetes operator, and then the service broker will basically deploy the CRDs to build the databases. So providing even more kind of operational ease.
Right, which gives you a really, I'm going to take a moment just to explain the operator kind of paradigm, if that's okay with you. So in Kubernetes, there's a way of doing deployments that is known as the operator pattern. You might have heard that. You might have heard that term before, kind of thrown about. What it is, just as a kind of very simple explanation, is it's a way that you can have basically a little piece of an application that is listening to resources that are stored inside of Kubernetes. And so it gives you a way that you can basically tell Kubernetes, hey, I need one of these, something custom, right? And then the operator would take that based on what you have deployed in there and take that information that you just provided it and give a larger deployment out of that simple just metadata information.
So yeah, a good example of that, I think, is the database example. You no longer deploy a database container. You say, hey, Kubernetes, I need a MySQL database that consists of this size, has this schema pre-built, and will auto scale based on these parameters, and the operator will take care of doing the rest. That's the best kind of good summary.
And the beauty of that is that you can then edit that custom resource and say you want to test a new version of your database, for example. You can just increment that version number, and then your operator would know how to safely do that upgrade.
So yeah, and I think that's and that really makes operating apps, containerized apps, really easy. If we continue through this demo, because I want to bring Abhinav on in a couple of minutes to talk about our roadmap for these couple of products. And people, get your questions in. We've had some great questions. As I mentioned earlier on the chat, we are kind of willing to stay as long really as we need to ensure that everyone's questions are answered. So fire
Awesome.
away.
Cool. So again, just to fill back in, I'm going to be deploying a blog that I happen to know needs a MongoDB database. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy a MongoDB into the SUSE dev organization and space. And I happen to know that 409 is what I need. I believe it's the latest that is included on this. And while I could attach it to any running application, I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it unbound for right now and give it a name, Mongo for demo. You can give it any additional parameters that you need. And let's go ahead and spin that up. Okay, so now you can see that I've got this Mongo for demo. It is deployed or is in the process of deploying. And while that is working, I'm going to go ahead and create the application that will use it. So I come back over here. I'm going to basically repeat the same steps that I showed earlier. So I'm going to kind of breeze through those a little bit faster. It's over in my project. So yeah, so the code is coming from this Python MongoDB blog from GitHub again. And I'm going to use my commit. I'm going to give it a new name because I don't want to duplicate our blog. As well as I'm going to go ahead and tell it what host to listen on. And so that's going to go ahead and do its deployment. So this will likely fail until I attach the service to it, because it needs the service to actually run. So so I can attach. Actually, I'm going to back up and explain this for a moment. So you can either attach from services that are already built up in the marketplace or provided custom by you. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the marketplace, and because, I did that backwards, apologize. Now that we've got the application up, I'm going to here, what did I call it?
That's all right, Andrew. I think we understand you've deploying a marketplace service, and you're specifying a plan, which is basically a size. And then when you then go to deploy an app in the future, which you're able to then choose that deployed service, and it will bind the two together, which is awesome. I think makes things really easy. So I'm gonna go for a couple more questions. Now we've answered the one about Windows.net. I think the only one that you didn't address in the chat, Andrew, was you mentioned that the system recognized your code, so it knew how to build the application. How does that work? And that's from Shaniqua.
Yeah, so it's actually a really cool process that it does. So inside of the build pack, every build pack has a couple stages that it goes through. And the first one is actually, it's called detect.
Just a high level view, Andrew. What magic is it?
Yeah. So there's a script that's called detect that every build pack has. And inside of that, basically, it just looks for potential files that you have included in your project. For example, I was using Node.js, so it looks for, do you have a package.json?
That makes sense. Yeah. So that it's kind of app auto detect to determine the best pack to use. I do notice as well that if for whatever reason it can't do that, it'll just start cycling through the build packs and until it finds the right one. Which is why specifying it in the manifest can help make things a couple minutes quicker. Right, so we've got about 10 minutes or so left. I know one of our customers wants to come on the line and share their experience. They just need to get a mic set up. So what we'll do is we'll go to Abhinav for 5 minutes, and what he's going to do is give us a very quick walkthrough of the roadmap for the two products, and kind of give the top 3 takeaways for the next couple of years for our 2 products. So over to you, Andrew. Sorry, Abhinav.
All right, awesome. So 5 minutes, both products. Then I'll just focus on the highlight features. So one of the key aspects that we are looking at with the SUSE CaaS platform, let me start with that, is supporting SUSE CaaS on all public cloud platforms. So you will be able to have a consistent Kubernetes installation in your on-prem environment and also across all multiple public clouds. So however you want, similar set of management tooling, similar set of processes. So you don't have to, just change all the processes or get locked into managed Kubernetes provided by any public cloud provider. What you're using on-prem, you can use the same thing and port it to your public cloud environments. That's number one. Another thing we're looking at is we're seeing, just in general, all organizations are very, very data driven these days. And there's a lot of analytics works that is being done. A lot of it is powered by applications that are driven by, machine learning algorithms. So we are looking at enabling GPU support within the SUSE CaaS platform to be able to support those AI/ML applications and those use cases going forward as well. Another cool thing, so you saw the Stratos UI, and Rob and Andrew demoed the really cool Stratos UI. So we are planning to bring that UI experience to the SUSE CaaS platform as well going forward. So you'll be able to enjoy, everything that you've seen with the SUSE CaaS platform, also with the SUSE CaaS platform. That's also in the pipeline. Another aspect with SUSE CaaS that we are currently evaluating is support for a service mesh. Absolutely critical, also under evaluation on which service mesh as SUSE should we be supporting and we be shipping with the product. With Cilium, the network plugin, it already solves some of those use cases, but we are still looking to ship some of that stuff as well. So at the same time, what we're also looking at, and there was a question regarding sandboxed containers and whether we are evaluating Kata as one of those. So yes, we are evaluating Kata containers. We are looking to support those sandbox container environments going forward. So that is also in the pipeline. And in general, we'll continue to ship support for the latest and greatest Kubernetes on a regular interval, and that's part of regular releases of the SUSE CaaS platform. So those are the key highlights that we are looking at, whereas so far as the SUSE CaaS platform is concerned. Let me jump into the SUSE Cloud Application Platform, since I guess I only have a couple of minutes left on this.
So, say, and while we're on the subject of CaaS, because a question came through relating to what you said from Roy, about mixing CaaS and public cloud and running the workloads across both. The answer to that, Roy, is absolutely yes. And you can even mix CaaS with EKS or AKS and everything else. So just before we go on to CAP, wanted to answer that.
For sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So moving on, Cloud Application Platform. So we talked about Irene. Andrew and Rob, you guys gave a good introduction to what Irene is. So right now it's in tech preview stage. The Cloud Application Platform, the current version in the market is the 1.5 version. With the 2.0 version, we will be looking to provide a more stable Irene support. At the same time, we are going to ship a Kubernetes operator for Cloud Foundry, for providing dynamic configuration of BOSH manifests and basically better lifecycle. That is called CF Quarks. So a containerized control plane for Kubernetes Cloud Foundry, making a cloud application platform absolutely Kubernetes native. And that is going to be a release defining feature of our 2.0 release for the cloud application platform. Couple
Awesome.
of more points, Ron, if I have 1 minute, I'd like to highlight with the cloud application platform. Key things we are on our priority for SUSE Cloud Application Platform is to address use cases of multi-cluster, multi-endpoint management, some of which can already be done with the Stratos UI as of today. You can connect multiple endpoints, whether those are CF endpoints or whether those are Kubernetes clusters to Stratos. But we are going to investigate that more and provide more functionalities therein. We're also going to, provide support, like I said, for enabling your CI/CD pipelines and more of, function as a service, capabilities within Cloud Foundry. So these are the high-level highlights that we're looking with so far as this product set is concerned.
I did also see a sneaky peek intro to a web-based code editor in Stratos as well, which
Yeah.
looks really awesome.
So
So
yeah, so that online IDE, code is also part of our roadmaps, and you will see all these things coming up. Like I said at the start, the way we are looking at the enterprise container platform market is not just container management and orchestration, but a whole set of management services and abstracting that to the PaaS level. So we're going to add functionalities in all of those areas.
awesome. Thank you very much for that, Abhinav.
You're welcome.
As mentioned earlier, we've got a customer, Loretta, but I believe it's actually going to be one of her colleagues, John, who's with her in the office, because he speaks slightly better English apparently. So they wanted to share their company's experience of SUSE CaaS Platform. Looks like they're from Zentronics Limited, a small tech company. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now, Loretta and John. Can you hear me, John?
Rob, hi. Yes, can you hear me?
I can indeed, John. So yeah, so you said you wanted to talk a bit about your experience with SUSE CaaS Platform. So how did how did that story begin?
Yeah, so we've been looking to sort of do some modernization of our application estate. It's been very traditional in the past, and we've been looking into sort of morphing that to a microservices style implementation, largely to allow some more agility for the business. But we were really struggling with trying to get Kubernetes going inside our organization. We've been looking at the upstream stuff, and it was a real challenge. So we're actually existing SUSE customers. So we were introduced to CaaS Platform, and we've deployed CaaS Platform 3. It's very easy to install, very quick and easy to get going. So it meant the architect types and administrators can actually deliver that Kubernetes stuff to our developers much more quickly, and get stuff going and get things working. So that's saving us a pile of time, a pile of pain. The other thing I wanted to pick up on actually was I've made some comments earlier on. I mean, we're doing everything on premises today.
Yes.
But we've definitely been looking at public cloud as an option, particularly for scaling our environments and our capabilities.
Yeah.
And in looking at some of that, we've seen differences with Kubernetes versions across the public cloud vendors. So can I just pick up on what I thought Abhinav said earlier on, is that CaaS Platform can actually run on top of the public cloud infrastructure vendors.
Of course, yeah.
So that, for example, would be a way in which we could unify our Kubernetes release between on-premises and different cloud providers as we test.
Absolutely, and as I'm sure you've experienced, I know myself, when I've used AKS or EKS, they change features or API capabilities every other week. Finding the documentation for that is challenging. They'll suddenly remove an API and your apps will break. And I think having that stability across the different clouds and your on-prem is incredibly important for enterprises. So thank you very much for sharing those points, John, and thank you, Loretta, for dragging him down from upstairs to get him to speak on your behalf. It's much appreciated. So gonna wrap this up now. Just to remind everyone, in the handout section, you'll see we've got two that are left. the SUSE Cloud Application Platform flyer, just our kind of marketing brief flyer. And we've also attached a PDF of the slides that I presented today. A recording will automatically go out 1 to 2 hours after I close the webinar. Please do forward it to your colleagues so that they can, you know, watch this and enjoy. Also worth mentioning, we have a slightly more advanced version of this webinar where we go into a little bit more detail into some of the technologies. So if you are up for a bit of acronym soup, then by all means, you can join that link. That link will be in the follow-up email as well. And yeah, please do tick when you're filling in the feedback survey. It'll pop up on your screen when I close the webinar. If you want someone from SUSE to reach out to you to talk about how we may be able to help your needs, or just to get some free consulting and guidance and advice, you know, we're always up for a chat. Just tick that yes box so then we can reach out to you via email directly. I would like to thank everyone for joining. Thank you, Shaniqua, Shanene, Brandy, and Loretta for joining and asking some good questions. Thank you, Claudio, for the good questions. Thank you, Roy. So lots of good questions, really good to see. And if you have any questions, just ask them in that follow-on survey. I'd like to thank everyone for their time. And if we get the Andrew and Abhinav on the webcam, just like to say thank you very much for your participation this morning. I know it's about 1 a.m. Well, now it's probably 2:30 for Andrew. So it really is appreciated that you'd come on and help our European and Asian friends and family with their application delivery journey. Thank you so much, Abhinav, for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We'll speak to you all soon, I'm sure. Based on the feedback you give about this webinar, we may run other meetups in a similar format. So yeah, start collaborating, and I hope everyone in Europe has a great day, and I hope everyone in Asia has a really nice sleep tonight and a good day tomorrow as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
you guys. Bye.
Wave, Andrew. Bye. Thank you, everyone.